In deconverting from Christianity to atheism, one of the first doctrines I doubted was that of the soul. Central to belief in the afterlife, it was also key to many of my fears when questioning the faith. In this video, I'll briefly cover my journey to losing belief in the soul. As a devout born-again Christian, I once trusted in the soul's existence with absolute certainty derived from God's infallible word. After realizing this faith was blind, I eventually lost that belief altogether, after appreciating the overwhelming problems with the idea of the soul in the complete absence of any convincing arguments in favor of it. The notion that we have a non-physical component is central to much Christian theology. Dichotomy, the prevailing view, posits that a human being has two distinct but closely related components, a material body and an immaterial soul or spirit. Unlike modern secular philosophy, in which physicalism is common, monistic views of body and soul were traditionally rare in Christianity. The dualist view of most historical theologians saw body and soul as separate substances interacting organically. Belief in a soul is not confined to Christianity either. In addition to influence from Judaism, the New Testament's usage of the terms psyche and pneuma borrowed from Greek philosophy. Plato, for instance, regarded the soul as our conscious component and believed it was immortal, attributing to it our powers of reasoning, deliberation, fear, courage, and sexual and other appetites. Other religions, such as Islam and Hinduism, also have a doctrine of soul. Yet in the light of modern knowledge, the soul began to appear to me a wholly unnecessary hypothesis. I could not think of one function for it that couldn't be attributed to my material nature. Neuroscience has demonstrated that fear and courage are processed in the amygdala, other limbic regions and the hypothalamus are responsible for appetite, higher order cognition is performed by the frontal lobe, and altering the prefrontal cortex profoundly changes character. Some claim the soul is necessary to know or love God, yet it's possible to alter religious beliefs merely by stimulating certain brain areas, and psychoactive drugs can have profound spiritual effects. The trump card in such arguments from ignorance was the hard problem of consciousness. We do not know how qualia arise from a physical brain, so some argue a soul must be responsible. This is analogous to attributing to God inadequately understood phenomena such as the Big Bang or abiogenesis. An incomplete understanding of consciousness does not imply it is non-physical. There is ongoing research suggesting it may be an emergent property of information processing systems meeting certain criteria, similar to life's emergence from non-living matter. Ultimately, hypothesizing that subjective experiences are properties of our complex physical brain, whose existence is known, seemed at the very least no less reasonable than postulating that they are properties of some non-physical substance, whose existence we have no evidence for whatever. The dearth of reasons to believe in a soul rendered its difficulties infinitely greater. I knew certain medications could dramatically alter subjective experience. Why should the soul be so inseparably linked to brain function? Certain amnestic drugs enable you to have a coherent conversation with someone that they will not remember. If turning off the brain's memory circuits disrupted their whole conscious connection to their past, would this not imply the soul lacked temporality, an inextricable part of humanity? Neuroscience has illuminated in detail the firing of neurons. We know they are made of quarks and electrons like all other matter, and follow physical laws. If I can consciously control my actions, but there is no identifiable non-physical force manipulating my brain's particles, how can I be a soul? Then I considered my individual origin as a chance sperm fertilized an ovum. In historical theology, creationism, the dogma that a unique soul is created for each individual, won out over ideas that souls pre-exist or are derived organically from the parents. Many Christians saw conception as the point of ensoulment, yet twinning can occur up to 2 weeks later. Various arbitrary attempts to assign another time to ensoulment, the first heartbeat or quickening, only seemed to underline the concept's unscientific nature. Humanity's origins yielded further questions. When did hominids first gain a soul? I had entertained the idea of some progressive Christians that one generation, or original couple, had souls miraculously bestowed on them. But this quickly became absurd when I considered that prior generations would have had almost identical behavior and values. More significant problems arose with traditional Christianity's description of the soul. The doctrine of its simplicity was vulnerable not only to the criticisms of divine simplicity, but also to the testimony of our multifaceted individual experience. The ancient dogma of the soul's immortality formed the philosophical justification for an afterlife, but the dominant Christian position that the soul passes to that afterlife immediately following death, while awaiting the body's resurrection, itself a marvelously bizarre concept, began to seem a strange notion. I had familiar first-hand experience with the process of losing consciousness, in dreamless sleep, under anesthesia, and having fainted. In all these situations, as the brain's usual activity ceased, my consciousness faded into the same subjective experience I had before conception. Nothing. Oblivion. Was it likely that once I died, after losing consciousness, when my brain's neurons had ceased their coherent firing, only then my consciousness would switch back on, now localized to a non-physical soul that still possessed my personality and all my memories, despite not having my prefrontal cortex or hippocampus, now devitalized and soon to decompose? Not only did the brain make the soul unnecessary, believing in a soul would make the brain unnecessary. With that, the soul became a pointless and nonsensical postulate. I acknowledge it's theoretically possible I have a soul, just as it's possible God exists. But in the absence of any good reason to believe it, the idea's flaws are significant enough for me to regard it as yet another pre-scientific explanation for the world that remains unfortunately enshrined in religious doctrine to this day.